should actually like make stock motion video. They're properly told narratives.
What do you mean?
I think that's the name of the channel. What do you mean with an exclamation point and a question mark?
The next question, which is, what do you mean?
You will learn something new in this channel.
In 2017, more than 3,000 Australians died by their own hand. They took their own lives. It's affecting our young people, it's affecting our veterans, it's affecting boys and girls in remote Indigenous communities. It's affecting middle-aged men, 45 to 50, living in suburbs, the highest rate of suicide in the country.
This is my response to our current Prime Minister Scott Morrison's video where he addresses the suicide rate in Australia. Mr. Prime Minister, if you have the numbers for how many Australians took their own lives in 2017, and being the Prime Minister, I would assume you could also get your hands on the number of the amount of people that died after receiving a debt discrepancy notice, which is sent from Centrelink using an automated data matching system to alert people of supposed overpayments. You know, the system more commonly known as robo-debt. You should know how many people died, because the reports say between July 2016 and October 2018, 2,030 people died. 2017 is in that time frame, Mr. Prime Minister. But I understand it doesn't make clear on the cause of death for all of those people, but just to assume that receiving a debt that you probably didn't even deserve could add to throwing you over the edge. And so then we'll rule out older people from maybe possible other deaths, health related and such, and we'll focus on your younger group of people, where it says 776 people died under the age of 45 after receiving one of these notices. But you don't need to have received a notice from the government putting the burden of proof on you to prove that the government screwed up to be feeling a bit worse for wear, because it's quite well known that suicide and depression are very prevalent amongst people receiving welfare benefits, like New Start, for example. You know, New Start, the welfare payment that you refuse to raise, no matter what any member from any other political party says, or what economists say and people from the Reserve Bank. Because you see, Mr. Morrison, your little tax cut thing may have bought you the election, but it's not gonna save the economy and stimulate people spending, because most people are probably going to use their tax return to help out with the monstrous amount of debt they're in. But anyway, I digress. Do you really think the 6 monthly increase is adequate? The 6 monthly increase of $2, which gets them 30 cents a day? Woo. Even your boy Barnaby Joyce reckons you should raise it now. And he also said something which some people may think it is offensive or having a stab, when the Deputy Prime Minister, or whatever he is, says that people will just turn to selling drugs to get by, or like growing dope, or however he phrased it. He's not wrong. He's not wrong, but that being said, it must be paired with people with jobs, probably just as much if not more, would buy, sell, use and make and grow narcotics and drugs of any description. That's how it is. Any sort of offence, I guess, to what Barnaby Joyce says, as if it take it in the sense where it's only people on welfare benefit, that is incorrect. But even that dickhead reckons you should raise New Start. Oh yeah, we should do this in full context and go through what New Start actually is. It's a welfare payment where you can receive currently $275 a week, which is $550 a fortnight, which is roughly $39 a day. They want to raise it by $75 a week, so $150 a fortnight, getting people $350 a week or $700 a fortnight to around $50 a day. And for some reason, I still feel like that might not be as much as the tax cuts that mainly the wealthier people get to benefit from that you just put through, Mr. Prime Minister. Because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I just have a hunch. Because I'm not in the position of Prime Minister where I have the ability to quickly find the numbers and statistics of like the suicide rate like you stated in that video. Which is why then you should be well aware of how much it is, how many people receive other payments and what they are. If there's 99% other benefits, it's probably very well true in the sense of the $10 power bill discount or whatever. You would know because you have economists and other members yelling about what it would do for the economy, unlike those tax cuts. Everybody knows, it's just like the first go-to fact that New Start has been the same for 25 years, since 1994. like the year I was born. It's been the same my entire life. And then that means that being in the position of Prime Minister, you would have the information, if it is correct that I have here, of the age of most New Start recipients. Because I think this piece of information here just sort of blows apart everything else. The whole stereotyping of some 20-something stoner that doesn't want to work, just living off the government. Well, people receiving New Start between the ages of 21 and 24 is 62,526, and the average amount of time they need to be on New Start is 45 weeks. The amount of people over 55, 173,196, with the average amount of time being 188 weeks. Why is it even called New Start? You can't get the pension till, 66, 67? So a lot of people just have to wait it out until they can get something that they can live on. These numbers make perfect sense to me because I understand that most businesses these days are going to be hiring a younger workforce, which then this kind of flies in the face of what you've been saying, Mr. Prime Minister, with how good are jobs? These people could just waltz back into the workforce whenever they please. And how good are jobs? Well, not very good, Mr. Prime Minister, when 1 in 5 working Australians have experienced wage theft. Yeah, I know everybody's now got that bald-headed fucking my kitchen rules douchebag popping in their head, but he's not the only one. To list a few others that have denied their staff the proper wages they deserve: 11, the convenience store; Caltex; Domino's; Pizza Hut; Brumbies; Retail Food Group; Michelle's Patisserie; and Chat Time bubble tea franchise, just to name a few. So how good are jobs that don't pay you properly? But I know you fully endorse wage theft and making people work for a pathetic wage, Mr. Prime Minister, because, well, this is your idea, wasn't it?
Working at some of the country's biggest businesses for $4 an hour. Even the Deputy Prime Minister seems to think that's strange.
People should be paid for the hours they work, of course.
Yet it's his government paying young people just $100 a week to work at multinational supermarkets, chemists and fast food shops.
Rorts, rip-offs, exploitation of young people.
It's called the Path Internship Program. A business is paid $1,000 from the government to host an intern. That intern works up to 25 hours a week for 3 months. The employer pays them nothing, while the government gives them $100 a week extra in their Centrelink allowance, or roughly $4 an hour. The idea is for the business to eventually give them a permanent job.
Transitioning from not work into work. The best form of welfare is a job.
A Freedom of Information investigation has shown Coles, Woolworths, Hog's Breath Cafe in Newcastle, Chemist Warehouse and AHS, a company that provides outsourced housekeepers, are all in the top 5 users of the program. At the Hog's Breath restaurant, 36 interns were placed. Only 6 have been given jobs. Overall, a little over a third of interns across the program actually got work.
And this program is failing. It's failing in safety, it's failing in adding to new jobs, and frankly, it's failing the youth of Australia.
The Jobs Minister, Michaelia Cash, said the Morrison government makes no apologies for trying to get young Australians off welfare and into work, and says across all of the schemes, they've found jobs for almost 50,000 young people. The government says it's committed to continuing the scheme. Chris O'Keefe, 9 News.
So you fully support a system that gives big corporations $1,000 for having someone work for them with no charge to the company, and you'll pay that person an extra $100 for 25 hours of work, so $4 an hour, with only a third of the people getting work afterwards, which you say is 50,000, so then to my count 100,000 didn't, but still leaves 150,000 people exploited for up to 3 months. You think that's reasonable, Mr. Prime Minister? You think that's fair? You think it's fair to, in a time when 200 people in Australia, the 200 richest people share a wealth of $142 billion, just 200 people have that much money, and 69 millionaires did not pay any tax. In a time like that, you think it's fair to then give $1,000 to big corporations? You think it's fair to get somebody to work for $4 an hour in a time when the top 10% have 50% of the wealth in Australia? When the top 1% recently, in recent times, they grew from having 14.2% to 16.2%. The top 1% gained 2 whole percentage points of all of Australia's wealth. Middle class people, mid-range people from 40% to the 90% range had 49.1%. And now have 42.1%, so we know who they took it from. And then that must mean, from these numbers in front of us, that bottom 40% of Australians share in 2.8% of the entire wealth of the country. The top 1% almost gained as much as the bottom 40% shared completely. And that's a good time to get people to work for $4 an hour. That's a policy you support, Mr. Prime Minister. Well, if that then is the case, considering that with all the other information I've just shared, I have come to a conclusion in regards to your video addressing suicide in Australia, so that if you, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, have access to all the relevant data, and your position is the position for crafting policy and payments, laws and legislation, but yet you choose to not help out Aussies needing a hand. Instead, you endorse wages that you should be embarrassed to have in Australia. You endorse those wages paired with corporate handouts against the advice from experts on what would be the most beneficial for the whole economy. You go against the experts. You go against the Australian people. This behaviour seems needlessly cruel and purposely done. It's like if a thief came back to the crime scene just to spray paint how good on the wall before burning it to the fucking ground. You, Mr. Prime Minister, are a fucking psychopath. This kind of touched on the demographics of the young group of people and kind of on middle-aged people. And I guess to address suicide rate amongst Indigenous people could possibly stop destroying their culture and their country and killing them. And as for veterans, it may help if we stop sending them to unnecessary wars, which are just to perpetuate the military-industrial complex. There's just a couple of ideas and suggestions.